I think it's like you have this societal expectation, this familial expectation, and then the expectation you put on yourself for the first part of your life, right? And then you realize this is bullshit. I'm not happy. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you start to discover what it is that you want and what you want to do. And I know my story is the same as every other person's story, but I also know that my story is valuable because I don't want women and men to feel alone anymore. I think we go through life so much feeling like I'm the only one dealing with this. I'm the only one who feels this way. And you're really not. Yeah. And so I just think 40 was a beautiful time in my life that just charted this journey, and I'm still on it.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hirsch Redpoon, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My guest today is Rachel Lavin. Rachel is the author of, she's waving for those of you who are only listening. If you can't hear her wave, she is the published officer. She's a police officer. She's not a police officer. You know what? An amateur would go back and record all that again. That would kind of kill the immediate momentum of this particular space and time that we're in. And that's what Truth Tastes Funny is about going with it, rolling with it, and not getting thrown. So what I will say is her book is the Doughnut Diaries. She's a professional speaker. She's a body love coach, a certified health coach, certified personal trainer. She grew up in Northern California. She has lived in, I'm not going to look at the page. She has lived in New York City, Portland, Oregon, Washington. I did look at Vancouver, and Hawaii, which we should talk about a little bit. And she currently lives in Greenville, South Carolina with her partner. And please welcome Rachel Lavin to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. That so far has been my favorite intro.
Great.
Of my podcast.
That's what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for perfect. We can't aim for perfect. And let's begin with the idea of perfect. What are your thoughts on perfect as an aspiration or as a reality?
I think as an aspiration, we all want that. But as a reality, I would love it if we could come to the collective agreement that it doesn't exist and that we should just strive to be the best we can be.
Yeah. And the best we can be is relative. We're all individuals. We're unique. You know, your career began with fitness. And so obviously fitness was something that was important to you early on. Where in all of these places did you grow up? Which was the one that you grew up in?
I grew up in San Jose, California, which is Northern California. I spent the first 18 years of my life there.
Okay. And was that where you developed a love of fitness and interest in the outdoors, perhaps?
Let's say the short answer is yes. I really kind of didn't know how I was going to get in the fitness industry. I'm totally dating myself right now. And I used to jazzercise in California. Does anyone know what
jazzercise? Yes.
So yeah, that is where it began for me. But not until I moved to the Northwest did I really dip my toe deep into the wellness space. Okay,
fair enough. And of course, jazzercise is, everything. What I do is I just say it's retro. It's retro. It's not that I was around during that time. It's not that I was one of the original people who rocked the LA Gear light up sneakers. I was just around when we brought them back. That's what it was. It's a retro thing. Okay. So, all right. And so what was your expectation as a young adult in terms of where you might live or what you might do?
I think that I always knew that I was destined for more than just California. knew that I grew up there, but I never felt connected. So I got married fairly young, and my husband at the time was promoted, and we were relocated to the Northwest. And instantly, believe it or not, I felt really connected to it. I felt really happy there. And people laugh at me because they're like, well, doesn't it rain there all the time? And yeah. But I didn't know that. I didn't care. That didn't bother me, actually. And when I got my job with Bowflex, again, I don't know if that's retro, because I don't know if it ever came back, but we all remember Bowflex, right?
Bowflex, yeah.
So I started working for that company and realized that fitness for me was more important than just listening to somebody order a machine and ask questions about a machine. I wanted to get in there, and I wanted to work with people one-on-one. And so I found a program at Portland Community College, which was called Fitness Technology. And it was a preparatory course to help you get ready for your ACE certified exam.
Right.
But it then turned into a degree program while I was involved. So I have a 2-year degree from Portland Community College.
Okay. Got it. But at some point, now your book didn't come until much later,
right?
But the Doughnut Diaries also sounds like it has a tether to fitness in some way. What is it, or what is it a reflection on?
It's a reflection of donuts being something that was such a pleasurable childhood memory for me. And as I grew up into a young adult and a woman, you learn that donuts are going to make you super fat, so you can never, 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 never eat one again. And when I decided that I was going, this is even before I was 100% sure that I was going to write a book, when I started realizing that I've restricted my diet, my entire way of eating my whole life, and I wanted to put an end to that, a donut was the first thing that I ate. And it was just, it was a really, really good feeling. It was a good memory. And I'm very happy that I can now feel guilt-free and shame-free when I do eat a donut.
That's fantastic. That's enough of a goal for me to try to achieve. With kids, what happens is now I've reached that point where I'm like, I've drawn a really, and I remember my not my parents, but aunts and uncles drawing like that dividing line with, well, you're a kid, you can have that. I can't have that. I can't have sweets, or I can't have that. And now I'm that person who's like, well, I can't have that donut. Right. You know, if I have a piece of a donut, I remember Louis Anderson talking about being on so many diets and saying, if I have a piece of a donut, I'm going to eat the rest of the donut. You know, he'd be like, I can't just have, one piece. I've tried that. You're just going to have all 4 pieces. And it's true, because if we, be able to get to a place where we're like, look, it's not the end of the world is the end of the world, the eating a donut. And so how does that extend to a broader philosophy of life and health and state of mind?
I think it's so valuable that we all, women in general, but men too. I'm realizing the more I'm in this space that men are just as confused as we are. So, people, let's just say people need to let go and create a healthier relationship with food. We have all been technically restricting for our whole lives, and we're not finding joy. We're not getting the nutrients we need, and we're not really exploring the amount of beautiful food out there with being so strict and so regimented. I'm going to live the rest of my life eating steamed chicken and steamed broccoli. And I'm here to tell you, I've done that too. And that's no way to live. Why not find a way that for eating for yourself that makes you feel energetic? It makes you feel good internally. It gives you energy, and you feel like you are able to eat more than 2 things. Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I've noticed about fitness and health, my son-in-law is very into fitness and diet and health, but he always has been. And he just said to me the other day, I enjoy this like I enjoy this lifestyle. I enjoy eating this way and I enjoy feeling this way. And I was like, well, that's the difference. Someone who who happens to love salmon, or they happen to, honestly just love the feeling of having very little body fat or whatever. That, not that I don't even think he measures that. He does measure his intake of what he eats and his proteins and all this stuff, but that's his interest. That's the field that he's in. That's what he's interested in, food and health. And, so to him, it's not a burden to stay fit, and what is fit? What is fitness? Since you have, so much now experience on different sides of fitness and what it means. What does fitness mean to you?
Well, now that I'm a 50-year-old woman, and I will never lie to myself or lie to your listeners. Of course, aesthetics will always play a role in my life, but longevity, that's the word I wish that people would, even younger people, would get on board with. Because do we want to spend our later years in and out of hospital beds, or do we want to enjoy our lives? We're all living longer, which is a beautiful thing, but how do you want to live?
Yeah.
So for me, fitness means that I am taking care of my body the best I can with movement, nourishment, and rest, and experiencing life the best that I can, enjoying my life the best that I can, and being happy. I think for me that it's not just I go to the gym, I eat, I go to sleep. You have to be happy. I don't want to say you have to be. I'm sorry. It's okay to want those things, and it's okay to strive to get those things. Now,
yeah,
I'll stop there. You go ahead.
No, that's okay. No, I think that a lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is what is going to make us happy and healthy, and longevity is a great example, because someone said to me yesterday, oh, I was talking to this entrepreneur, and he's 71. And at first he was kind of saying in the context of him being engaged in spite of being 71. And then he realized, well, you know what? This is today's world. 71 is not considered old anymore. 71 is somebody, and then we ended up talking about, reports of your most productive times being in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, and right behind that is the 50s. So the productivity is generally increasing if we care for ourselves, generally speaking, that way. If we look at it that way. And so it goes back to, how do you think of yourself? Are you going to think of yourself as a retiree at 65, or are you going to think of yourself as not really dependent on whatever that classification, or if this were the biblical times and someone was 75 years old, they would call him kid. They would say, talk to me when you're 400. They wouldn't think anything of it. Oh, I'm 80. How are you doing now? Life also, and this show is about that. Life throws curveballs. Life throws unexpected things at us. At some point, you've described yourself as being sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? You use that phrase. What was that? What was that time like?
I had just turned 40, and I was a size 0, and I did not feel like, this is not who Rachel is. I don't know who Rachel is.
Yeah.
And I got really tired of the stress I was putting myself through, the expectation I was putting myself through, and still not knowing at 40 years old who I was and who I wanted to be. And I just think it was such a valuable time for me in my life. And I'm hearing more and more that I'm sharing. So many women are coming into their own at that age, or even older, which is awesome. Right. But I think it's like, you have this societal expectation, this familial expectation, and then the expectation you put on yourself for the first part of your life, right? And then you realize, this is bullshit. I'm not happy. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you start to discover what it is that you want and what you want to do. And I know my story is the same as every other person's story, but I also know that my story is valuable because I don't want women and men to feel alone anymore. I think we go through life so much feeling like I'm the only one dealing with this. I'm the only one who feels this way. And you're really not.
Yeah.
And so I just think 40 was a beautiful time in my life that just charted this journey, and I'm still on it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another part of it, which is that we're always learning and we're always changing. And I think we get in the mindset that past is, definitive.
Mm-hmm.
I always ate a certain way. I always had a certain body type.
Right.
I'm a certain body type. Do you feel society is changing, getting better, getting worse? What about the external influences?
I could tell you right now, I'm so grateful that I'm not a teenager or a young adult in this time of social media, because even the younger women I work with and I talk to, it's relentless. And I feel awful for them. I mean, because without social media, I had enough stuff coming in externally that was influencing me. I can't even imagine being around right now. So that's terrible. But at the same time, I do feel like there is a shift in the conversation. And although it's wrapped up in a pretty little bow called body positivity, and again, that's fine. It's a buzzword.
Right.
But I do feel like many more people are going on that self-discovery journey to get from A to B, which is also a beautiful shift.
Yeah. It's there as a goalpost, body positivity, stuff like that. And, just even outside of the, whether it's weight or beauty, just in individuality. And, we're challenged as much as we are on the road to progress or awareness. It's like, we challenge ourselves. I don't know what it is with human beings that we're like, we're not really happy unless we're breaking something. Like if something goes well, we got to break it. And then if something is going bad, we also want to tinker with it and fix it. But it works both ways. So tell me a little bit about body love coaching.
Mm-hmm. Well, what we just touched on, the words that are being used, and again, I'm not putting them down. I think they're great. But for me, it doesn't encompass the work that you have to put in to figure out. It has really nothing to do with the way you look on the outside. It's how you feel about yourself on the inside. And what do you need to deal with? What do you need to let go of? What do you need to free yourself of to finally love yourself and the package you come in? So I think that for me and the women I work with, it's not just going to be surface stuff. It's going to be like, what caused you to hate your body? Why do you hate your body? Why, those things are very important to acknowledge and deal with and accept, and then let them go. You have to, or else we're not going to get to that happy place.
And now I'm thinking back again about some of the places you've lived. How did Hawaii factor in? I'm a little bit fascinated with it because of its relationship to, what mental health is like, what physical fitness is like, what body positive, all those things. Hawaii is rich with a lot of culture and a lot of questions. So tell me a little bit about that experience, if you would.
Of course. I literally graduated high school on a Friday, and I was living in Hawaii on Monday. It was something I wanted to do for the summer that turned into a little bit longer. And I think that it was my first kind of little taste of being on my own. I was kind of learning how to depend on myself. I was trying to figure out how to cultivate relationships. And at the time, I was only 18 years old. So I hadn't had a lot of life experience in that sense. But Hawaii is a very interesting place, especially for a woman, in my opinion. I think it's hard to live that island life without kind of just becoming a part of the island, if that makes sense at all. I just feel like you move there, you really are kind of okay with not going to school and not having a job, a career. It's like you have a job. or you have two jobs. You're living that beach bum life. At least it was that way for me in the 90s. I don't know if that's changed. It's just living on an island when you come from the mainland is a completely different animal than if you were born there. And I just never felt like a connection there. It was fun. Don't get me wrong. I loved it and I would not change it for the world, but it's not something that I can do personally.
And does it have to be that island? In other words, is the outsider thing, more environmental, or is it specific to Hawaii and, being an outsider versus, in other words, let's say you grew up on another island, what is that like?
That I don't know. I mean, I have visited the Caribbean islands, which is, on the East Coast. And I did kind of feel, and maybe it's because I experienced it so young, I did feel a lot of similarities. It's like, okay, this is fun to visit, but it's time to go home.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Miami. I have felt comfortable in beachy and beachside areas all over the world, although it really does matter. Like it matters which I know which ocean I'm on or which sea. It's like I know in my head. It's like it's the only place I have a good sense of direction is at the ocean. Don't put me in the middle of the city because I'll probably forget where to turn. But I do get that sense. Oh, I like this atmosphere. But that said, I haven't lived in Hawaii but I do know that people who have moved there have said, yeah, it's hard to become absorbed, without, having and no familial or ancestral tie to it, to become absorbed, in that culture.
Right.
Oregon, it's a little bit different. Oregon, you just have to be willing to put up with the rain and mud and some other stuff like that. But mud. Well, if you're running on a trail in Portland. Okay. So now, as far as the last several years have gone, where we've faced a lot of unusual challenges, different challenges, priorities have shifted. Have you noticed amongst your audience, your clientele, a shift in what matters to them or what they're looking for?
I would love to answer yes. I'm seeing so much. No, I really, really thought that was going to be the outcome of the pandemic, and maybe for some it has. I know for me it changed, but I don't think everyone let go of that. I got to go mentality. And I got to keep myself busy with this, and this. I don't think as many people as I had thought would let go of that have. And it's not easy. I get it, especially if you have a family and kid. I mean, I don't have those things,
Yeah.
So maybe it is different, but I will say that I work with a lot of different women in it who are also fitness professionals. And it's interesting to hear what they're seeing and what they're noticing. So people are finally feeling comfortable going back into the facility. It's not so much the workout at home anymore, even though that's still happening. I do feel like people are finally feeling safe enough to go back to the gym or back to their classes, so those things are getting better. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, that's important for everyone because I think routine and comfort and, like we were just talking about, a sense of belonging is so important to our ability to sustain exercise and other things. Certain kinds of gyms work for one person, certain routines work for others. And when you can't do those, if you have accountability partners or things like that at the gym, it's hard to do stuff on your own in isolation. You're just not gonna do as much. Unless it's really, really integral to your being. Let's circle back around to we've touched on it slightly, but your work with women and your interest in helping women and creating safe spaces and so forth. I think that seems like kind of a driving force. So I want to make sure we cover that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for including that. I work with women, little kids. I work with teenagers. I work with women of all ages. And I'm finding, especially now kind of introducing myself to a new community here in Greenville, which has really welcomed me with open arms, which is lovely. I'm working with some women's organizations. I work with the museum for the kid. I am very happy. And what I'm finding is that it's never too early to have a conversation with a young person about body image. I mean, it's happening young, and why not be the voice in their head of positivity and joy and acceptance, as opposed to having to like live their whole life the way I did and finally get there at 40, right? If we can nip that in the bud, that'd be so amazing. But I also feel the draw to work with women who are so much like me and who have lived like this their whole life and are still living like this. And it's like, we don't have to anymore. But do you need tools to change your mindset and put into action some new ways that you can achieve happiness? Yes, we absolutely do. So that's what I'm doing with my life. I'm trying to dismantle the diet culture. I'm trying, and I'm not saying I'm doing it alone. I am really working with a bunch of amazing women. So dismantling that restrictive diet culture. And also too, I think with feeling this way about yourself comes so much isolation. And in turn, I think affects our mental health, affects anxiety, affects how we feel. So I would love it for people to feel included and feel that they're in a safe space.
Now, how about on the writing front? Are you working on another book, or what's going on in that department?
The second book is definitely here, but I had no idea what it was going to take from me to actually get book number one, like really out there. So I have been busting my butt for the past year and a half, doing beautiful shows like this and meeting amazing women and meeting people in my community. It's like, how can I get people to know about Rachel? And it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And writing a book is its own challenge. And it really pushes you to think about who is it for? It's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to write a book, and like you're going to throw it out in the atmosphere and anyone who wants it can get it. But as you start putting time into doing it, you have to be checking yourself, and you have to be saying, well, okay, who's this for? It's clearly not for me. It's got to be for someone else. And who are they going to be, and what are they going to get out of it? What's the value what is the reason for really doing this? And then, what is the start and finish? And then what? Are you going to do more? You speak, you do speaking engagements. What's that like? And where do you enjoy speaking?
Right now I'm doing workshops for Prisma, which is our main hospital here. They have a life center, which is amazing. I'm also doing it for online women's groups. And like I mentioned to you, I'm working with a women's organization here it's a program that helps women who were sex trafficked and they're trying to get their lives back. And so I work with them. And I love it so much. I love everything I'm doing. So the end goal is one day I will have a TED Talk, of course, but we're not there yet.
Well, you have to start with a lot of talking before you hone it down to that, 17 minutes or whatever it is for the TED Talk. It has to get, sharpened and perfected and all that stuff, and you can start with the TEDx. You can start with with more of the local talks, but that's one of the wonderful things about networking and about, the internet age is that as much as we love appearing in person and connecting in person, that is facilitated in large part by all of the technology that we have that transports us there. As we wrap this up, I wanted to give you like a last word. I mean, if there's some message or some call to action that you haven't yet had a chance to share, by all means, this is your opportunity.
Well, thank you. I love to leave podcast audiences with one thing that they can start with right this moment. And I think that we've been talking about it this whole time, but loving yourself comes from an internal thing. You have to start from within. but maybe you're not super aware of how to do that, or where do I even start? So the most simplest task I can say is I want you to go get a Post-it in your favorite color. They come in a variety of colors. And I want you to write one nice thing. It can be about your body. It can be about your personality, anything you want. But I don't want it to be something that you are already comfortable with. Like, I'm sure people tell you all the time that you have a great smile. So don't start there. Start with something that is not so common. And I want you to place it somewhere where you're going to look at it every day and say it out loud to yourself for 1 week. And just notice the shift in when you say that thing. I love my arms. I love how caring I am. I love that I'm empathetic, whatever it is. And see if that actually has affected you. And I love to hear the stories like, yes, it actually helps. So that would be one call to action. Very simple, very easy. And really, it can change. It can start some change.
That's fantastic. Well, I know I'm going to do that. And I'm one of these people with the stuff on my walls. And every now and then it catches your eye. It's like I have a couple of things. I have this contract with myself thing over here that I haven't looked at it in months, but it's like when I do, well, but when I do, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I it's a little reminder. It's a little reminder. I have this coin, this never give up coin.
Oh, I love it.
That was given to me by Chris Joyce, acquaintance of mine, who helps startups get launched and all that stuff. Really great guy, but it was given to him and he used it at a time where he really needed it, passed it on to me. I'm sure I'll do the same at some point. And, the little things mean a lot, Rachel, thank you so much for being on the show. If people want to find you, they can go to rachellavinwellness.com, right? Anywhere else they should seek you out?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all under Rachel Lavin Wellness. And then, of course, like you said, my website.
All right. Well, find Rachel there and find peace of mind and happiness and joy and all that good stuff, because it is out there and it's also in here. Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.